Today I'm going to start cleaning this stuff up. I think I'm going to do this first. Might put the little thing back on the washer switch there, clean this up. Clean this and this up. And I might, if I have time, see if I can get, whoops, I dropped one of the screws here. There was only 3 screws holding this clock in those places. And if you look at the dash panel here, see the threads are visible in that hole. They're not. This has never had a screw put in there since the day it was installed. And like I say, these, I think I said in the past video, the clock was an option. So these dashes were probably put together as an assembly and shipped to the assembly plant. And then whether the car had a clock option or not is when the clock was installed. I suspect that's, because everything for this is dated February 7th, except for the clock that's dated April 29th. And like I say, the car rolled off the assembly line April 29th. That was April 19th, the clock, if I misspoke myself. But another thing too, I ordered some paint to repaint that needle. And this is what it looks like. I'll put a little picture of the bottle right here. But anyway, I had a question too on, somebody said their speedometer was off, and the faster they go, it's off. That's common when there's the wrong gear in the speedometer drive at the transmission. It's just the gear on the end of the cable. You don't need to change the gear on the tail housing of the transmission. Just the gear, the driven gear that goes to the speedometer cable. But there is I don't know if that shows up in there or not, a little tiny spring right in there. And that's how they adjust the tension on the needle to return it. And if that's weak or something, yeah, it could read off, could be reading higher if that spring is, not adjusted correctly or anything. But I did notice in the video too, when I went to edit, I really didn't get down in there, but you can see those. Hopefully you can see those little metal ears that clip into that bar that goes across there. And that all the space on the screws. See the little screws right there? And the one up in there. So this, if I have to just change the face of this, I can. You have to pop that speedometer needle off the stem, but that's just pushed on, so that's no big deal. But yeah, it's a pretty simple little, and I don't know if you can see the gears in there. Let me get it right under the light fixture here. There, can you see the gears in there now? Yeah, sorry about that. I didn't notice that until I was editing. But there's, you can see that white gear, nylon gear back in there. Runs to that gear, which turns that gear, which turns the gear on the digits. And then these digits, they have like a little, that last one I don't, yeah, right there, it does have it. It's a little like, let me, I'll get a screwdriver again and show you how that cog turns them. So now you can see in there, and you can see this little thing right there. There's a little notch right there. And these little doodads here, they're like in between the digits. And they kind of hold the digit from turning because they're locked into that little doohickey. And then when I'd have to take it apart and really show you how it changes, but one revolution of this turns this one digit, one revolution, so on and so forth. Obviously, that's the way it works as these are moved around. So that's kind of how the odometer registers. Pretty cut and dry. And I notice, you notice that January, and it's got a number, a day number. I can't quite read it down in there, but it is January 66. So let me see if I can see what the exact date is on that. So the odometer digits obviously were made in January. The speedometer was assembled in, or this was done in February 66, and then obviously the panel was shipped to the assembly plant after it was put together. But anyway, let me see if I can see that date on that digit. In all honesty, it looks like a 7 but it's smudged, you know, kind of smeared around it, but it looks like January 7th, 1966. So that'd be 1 month before the speedometer was assembled. Those gears, or those odometer wheels, were made. Yeah. Huh. Anyway. All right, let me get to the stuff here. Yeah, and I'll get to the radio too. I got to polish up the buttons, clean the face, and then this dial here really needs to be repainted desperately. So we'll get that all cleaned up too. This, when I say the dial, a pointer, not the dial here is in really good shape on the radio. It doesn't need anything. But the pointer is in desperate need of some attention. The heater control is really cleaning out nice. This was the side that was really ultra hideous on it. This was the underside, the top side. So I took this off so I could clean it, and the switch, I didn't want to get the solvent in the switch. I was thinking of taking the switch apart and cleaning it, but I can see down in here and it looks like new in there. I can see the contacts and everything, so I think I'm just going to clean the switch up. The reason why I took these out and take these little clips off too, that kind of rub on it here to hold them in place. But this was, you know, greased with from the factory, and you can still see some of it in there. I got to clean it out a little bit better, but yeah. So anyway, I'll get in there and clean that out, and it's kind of hardened in there, the grease. So that made the heater controls a little stiff. So I'm going to clean all that make sure all that old grease is out of there, and put new grease in there. And I took my chrome polish and some 4/0 steel wool and cleaned these, because when they had knobs on there and these stick through the dash, you see a little bit of this, and I didn't want rust on any of the edges visible. This is in the car. That's actually the right way up right there. But these stick through, you know, this, and through the instrument panel, and you can, if you look in videos, you can see a little bit of this between the knob and where it goes through the dash, especially when they're straight out, not to one side or the other. And I didn't want anything looking bad there, so that's why I cleaned them up, and I cleaned all the edges up. Even these edges here had a little bit of dirtiness to them. So that cleans that up. You can see a little grease here still. I could take this totally apart right here, take this clip off, and these arms and everything will fall off. And these arms are numbered too. I'm going to say that's a 6 because there's a 7. So I don't know. That's just maybe the way they, you know, numbered. I don't know why Ford would stamp them like that, but you can see there's some more dirty, nasty grease. So we'll clean all this old nastiness out. I'll throw this in the parts washer again. I already had it in there once. And we'll get all that nastiness off there, and new grease on it and back together, and this thing should be a beautiful working heater control, nice and smooth, you know, when I move the levers. And this is, you know, it was smooth before, but it's going to be even better now. So anyway, let me get back on this. I just wanted to show where I was at with this heater control. There's just a couple screws here and here that hold this there, and then the switch just attaches on with one of those too, like so. So anyway, just kind of was showing what the switch goes here, because you can see how it has a tab. It's kind of a no-brainer. It just fits right there. And then this all screws over it. Super duper simple. All right, let me get this thing the rest of the way cleaned up. As I'm cleaning things up here and putting things back together, I noticed one thing. You know, I was cleaning this little doohickey up here, And I thought that that was just really dirty around where the switch goes through, but it appears that that edge around there, you can see a little overspray there, was painted trim black. So I'm just going to shoot a little onto my paintbrush and just redo that in case that shows through the panel. And I cleaned the switch up really nice, but I want to clean the connectors. So this was the toilet bowl cleaner I was using. It looks like I need to put more in there. I don't have enough. I got to fill it up to there. So let me do that, and then I'm just going to dip these terminals just to make sure they're all clean. You know, good connections are kind of imperative on these older cars that I'm parked a long time. You know, that stuff gets, you know, condensation and corrosion on it over years, and then it just isn't as good of a connection. So we're going to get that done too. There we go. And then I'm not going to set it so it goes all the way. Well, I guess it's hitting, but I'm just going to kind of hold it here. And I'm not going to let it sit there for very long, maybe 30 seconds or a minute tops. I mean, it doesn't take very long, and those terminals will be clean as a bell. Yeah, that moment or two is all that took. We'll set that aside. The switch is cleaned up. I think this is pretty cleaned up. I got in there and scraped it out, wiped it with a rag with my favorite stuff here called lacquer thinner. And we'll get I think I'll just start putting this together. I think I'll put the toilet bowl cleaner and the lacquer thinner away. And we'll continue on here. I'm going to start putting this assembly back together, and I want to grease these where they slide in here so that is greased when I put it together. This I'm going to wait until I grease until I put it in the car so I don't get it all over myself. That's no big deal. And I'm going to put the switch back in, and let's get it back together. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to put a little bit of grease on my screwdriver, and it rubs on the top of both of these. You can actually see where it has rubbed if you really, yeah, you probably can't in the video, but I can sitting here. So we'll get this all nicely greased up in here. It rides on both sides of this. This is good grease for longevity. That's why and it's very similar to what was originally used. And then I'll put some in here. And I'll be a little liberal with it in there, you know, it'll help prevent future corrosion. Whoops, I'm not even in the viewfinder. Sorry about that. I notice I don't look at the viewfinder. I'm looking at what I'm doing while I'm doing. And then when I go to edit the movie or the video up, I'm like, oh geez, I completely messed that one up. But that's the way it goes. I'm not a pro. I'm an amateur at this, you know, movie making. But get those through their respective spots. These things in there, pushed in there. Get those holes lined up. Wow, yeah, that made a big difference. Those are nice and smooth now. Oops, kind of knocked it out of there. Put the screws back in. Put the heater, oh, I want to paint that. I'm going to do that right now before I put it any further together, is paint this little bit right here. All right, let me come over here and this is what I'm going to do here. I just kind of, this is what I'm using. Just give it a little shake, and I'll just spray it right into the cap of the can lid. Good enough. Clean the nozzle, and then I can just take my brush and the cap there. And I'm going to use the same trim paint when I do the letters on the switch knob too for the windshield washers. I'm going to get it a little around the edge here too because it looked like it was originally like there, so I just don't want chrome showing through where it's not supposed to be. Alright, that looks like it'll do that. Touch that a little bit more there. There we be. Alright, that's touched up. Yeah, it may be a little excessive what I'm doing here, but you know, that might show through and it might look like heck. So why not take the extra, how long that take, you know. On these, I just threw these in the toilet bowl cleaner. I've done nothing else to them, and then it blew them off. Well, I threw them in the toilet bowl cleaner and then in my thing of water and then the toilet bowl cleaner. And I took it's a 5/64 Allen wrench, and I took the little set screw out because, you know, don't want it to stick in there in the future, and I'll put a drop of oil on the set screw. And I'll put a drop of oil on the threads there. And that way this won't get seized in there ever. You know, I'll run it through all the way and back a couple times. And then these go on the control. See how there's a dimple there? There was one here that faced that way, so that's the way that goes on. Then this one here will go on this way, and then this one, once I get it done, will go on this way. Now I'm not going to put them on now, I'm just kind of showing how they go, and then you just tighten up the screw. But I'm just kind of getting these cleaned up, and I'm going to throw them back in the bag, and then once this is reinstalled, I can reinstall these. But I just don't want the set screws to seize in there after cleaning them with toilet bowl cleaner and then in water. So this is the other one. I'm going to just blow those threads out with a little compressed air, and then I'll and then I'll just put a drop of oil and everything again. It's probably not even a drop. And then I'll go through and polish them up with chrome polish once they're back, you know, ready to put back on the car. There we go. These knobs those turn real nice. They were stiff in there. They turn super nice now. Alright, so the knobs are cleaned up for the heater controls. I'm going to take this one back off. And that is ready to... Sorry about that, the air compressor turned on. But anyway, these by the compressor pumped up, I just went over those with a little chrome polish, and I'm going to put them back in the bag with the heater control parts. Back in the box of goodies there, and I think this is ready, dashboard ready. Now, like I say, I'll grease this and this up after I go to, you know, right when I go to install it. I suppose I could put the little, they're in the bag, they're all right there, you know, the little things, that way if they come loose. But anyway, this is the temperature, and that works super smooth back and forth. And this is off, that's cold hot, that's off, that's defrost, and that's defrost there, that's floor. But there's a detent there to stop it part way, and you couldn't feel that before. It was just so full of crud, and I can clearly feel that now there, and it stops there, and then you can put it onto there, and it stops there. You can put it back off. So that's kind of nice that you're not just guessing, oh, well, that looks about right, it's in the center. You can actually feel that detent now, which is kind of nice. So that, cleaning that up made all the difference in the world. So there we go. The heater controls are done. Next, I'm going to fix the washer switch, but this needs some cleaning up too, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I'm going to just take all this apart here and clean it all up. This is all in really nice shape. There's zero corrosion in there. That looks excellent in there. I think just clean it up and put the washer switch back together, and that'll be ready to go. It all worked. So let me start on that now. First thing, I got to get the broken piece out of the car. This is laid out the way this switch goes together, so you can kind of see there's a dimple there for the spring. There's a thing there for the spring. Did I show this, or was it out of the camera? So those obviously go like so. And then you can see the contact in there. And this is the top, because that kind of goes like there. And then there is this little thrust spring washer to probably keep this, which goes on here, which works the switch. When you push it this way, it moves that switch. But probably to keep it from being, you know, somewhat wobbly like that. But this had dielectric grease on this pivot, had it on the spring, and it had it on this and on that and that. The contacts didn't, none of that, but all this stuff did. So I'm gonna put some dielectric grease on it before I put it back together. These are a few of the greases that I could use. So this is dielectric grease. I don't know if I'm going to use dielectric grease. A silicone grease and a plumber's faucet grease. This grease was kind of a gold. It actually looked just like in the consistency of this stuff. So this is what I'm going to use on the moving parts of this. I think that will be the best stuff. I've used this in the past on switches like where the pivots are, when, you know, if it's not an electrical connection. This is good for electrical connections. It helps conduct current, and I don't want, if there's any seepage of grease, to carry a little bit of current, so that's why I'm going to use this. It's all together, and I'm going to check to see if it works. It springs back like it should, but to get those things, you know, you hold it together the best you can, and it's still a little loose, so that's how I'm going to tighten up. And you just gently tap. Doesn't take much. That metal is so soft, you don't want to bust it, so that just kind of folds those ears back in there so that it's nice and tight, and that will go right back on there now. And when the wipers are off, you hit the squirters, it turns them on, squirts, you let it off, it stops squirting, start squirting, stop, turn the wipers back off, low, high. So that came out nice. I'm going to test this with my ohm meter before I screw it back to that, and then we'll move on to another part. Can you hear that? So I'm just going to touch this on the terminals. I'm going to try and hold everything here if I can. It's kind of hard to hold all this. All right, I think I got it on the terminals. Here, let me put this, and then you can see the, I don't know if you can hear it or not, but maybe you can see the display. It is working. So I'm holding these two wires to there. All right, we got a working windshield washer switch. Let me put that assembly back together. Yeah, those wires just fold up in there. You got to make sure you turn it off. It just has like one of those button cells, like what's in a watch, and I've replaced it a couple times over the years. It's right behind there. But yeah, so any of you, if you're interested in the vintage stuff, you know, I have a lot of it. And I've been doing this, working on cars for 40 some years now, so everything I have is vintage, I think, now. There we go, all bolted back together, ready to go back in the dashboard of the car. I'm going to clean up the little knobs here and paint the little thing in there so it all looks nice. All right, I taped that up and it's ready to, I'm going to shoot a little bit of this on it, and then I'll take, that's got lacquer thinner in it. I'll just take a little on my paper towel and wipe it. My hands are going to be covered in paint, so I don't know if I'm going to be working the camera, and I'm obviously not going to video spraying it. I'm just going to take it outside and put a super light mist on it. As you can see, I just put a very light, you can see the chrome through it still. And if I take too much off with the lacquer thinner, you know, you just respray it. It's no big deal. Sometimes you have to do these a couple of times. So I just dip that in my lacquer thinner, and I'm just going to let it evaporate out a few seconds so it's not as wet. Maybe get it over here where it's kind of on the dry side, and just kind of that actually looks pretty good. I think I'll untape it and clean the whole thing up and see how it looks. Doesn't take much to do these. And if I have to redo it, like I say, it's not the end of the world. This is pretty simple. And now the paper towel's about the dryness I really prefer. Right now is perfect. But anyway, that came out good. I'm going to call that good. I don't need to, my glove has paint on it, and I keep getting paint on this from my glove, so I guess I need to take my glove off and throw it away. But there we go. I don't know if that shows up in the, trying to get it. I can't really tell. Like, the screen on this camera is so tiny. But yeah, it definitely says wash in black on there now. Whether it shows up in the video or not, I don't know. So the knobs are, I cleaned this one up, you know, and I put them in the toilet bowl cleaner. That cleaned both sides up, down in there, all the nooks and crannies. I took the set screw out and put a drop of oil on it. So that is done. Cleaning up the ignition switch. This was a new part. I had to replace this to get the car going. I reused the original key lock cylinder, but I had to replace the switch. And the chrome bezel, that's in really good shape, cleaned up. And one thing I'll do when I go to put it together, I'll put a drop of oil on the threads there and there, you know, that way these won't gull as you're turning it in or bind up. You just lubricate anything, you know, especially aluminum threads, you really need to lubricate them. But this, I cleaned up in my cup of lacquer thinner, and you can see it still has a little black paint on it here and there. I could see it was originally painted black. So I'm going to take that and shoot some black on it. That looks really good, much better. And I just used a spray bomb, and I did use gloss black. I just wanted to show this here. This is the NOS clock that I got working, and that's the original clock to the car. And you can notice, I don't know if it shows up in the video as well, but those hands are not orange, they're more of a red. These ones are kind of an orange because I think they're just sun faded. That's why I ordered the red for the needles, because I think it just, the orange was even more orange than what that's faded to, and I think that it would look funny on this car when I think they're more of a red. So that's why I got the red. If any of you are questioning and think it might be orange originally, maybe, but certainly looks more red to me than orange. I just want to add this to the video. It's been a month today. My dad died on the morning of November 15th. It was a Sunday morning, and this is 4 weeks later on a Sunday morning. And it's been a difficult month. I still go to pick up my phone to call him to tell him what I've done on the car, but he knows what I've done. I don't even need to put videos up for him to know what I've done on the car. I think he's watching over me, and that makes me feel really good. And I feel like he, you know, is encouraging me to move on with the car. That's what he wanted me to move on in life, be happy, continue doing what I enjoy. So I'm doing my best to do it. It's hard sometimes, but I'm getting through it. I still rarely carry my phone with me, but I have started to carry it around with me occasionally again. I don't go to reach for it all the time just to give him a call to tell him what I've been doing, or, you know, see how he's doing, see how he's feeling and stuff. As I talk to him every single day. So sometimes twice a day, if he was not, feeling good, sometimes he'd call me and we'd talk a couple times a day too. So I just wanted to put that up, that it's been a month and it is, still really hard, but it's not as bad as it was. I still have a lot to deal with the estate and stuff, and that's difficult. And I have his phone and it occasionally rings. And this morning it rang, and it was a doctor, one of his doctors calling to confirm his appointment. So I had to let them know. It was a recorded message, but I had to call back and leave a recorded message that he won't be coming in and why, so they can open up that appointment window for somebody else that might need it. So I did want to have the courtesy to let them know that he wouldn't be in next Wednesday for his appointment. So I just wanted to add this little tidbit, and I appreciate everyone out there that has said prayers and everything. It's really helped a lot. Thank you very much. Well, I'm going to wrap this video up. I think tomorrow we'll putz with the clock and stuff. But anyway, if you want to check out some of my other favorite tubers, those are the ones that, are my top ones I watch. Anyway, that's it. If you like the video, definitely hit the like button. It certainly helps. If you want to see this dash all finished up, all this stuff, eventually we'll go back together and you want to see it done, subscribe to my channel and hit that by hitting that 348 engine icon that pops up there. And thank you for watching my videos.